Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out important news. And today's news that we're talking about at Royal Helium is big because it's an acquisition. On screen, you can see him. He's back again. Andrew Davidson, CEO and chairman of the company that trades in Canada, the stock symbol RHC. For our friends in the US, RHCCF. It's amazing, guys. A lot of people still think when they hear helium, they think balloons. But what they don't realize are all the high-tech applications that include, and this is just a small list, MRI Magnets, Fibre Optic Cables, chips in our electronics, even cleaning rocket fuel tanks. Helium is in big demand, and that's making a high-priced commodity with prices continuing to rise because all these high-tech applications, high-tech applications keep growing. Where Royal Helium comes in to kind of help on the supply side is they're one of the largest landholders searching for helium with over 1 million acres of prospective helium land in Saskatchewan. And they've made one of the biggest helium discoveries in Saskatchewan history. All right. So they have plans for production in 2022. I mean, they've been ready to go, but supply chain is causing they're not immune from the supply chain issues, but the economics are crazy and compelling with, wells declining just over 11 years, low cost CapEx, payback 6 months, and then generating cash flow for years. It's unbelievable. And today's press release that we're talking about came out on May the 2nd. Royal Helium enters into agreement to acquire Imperial Helium Corp. Andy, welcome back, my friend.
Thanks, George. Thanks for having me. It's a great intro.
Hey, big acquisition. Clearly, you're still bullish on the helium market and the industry, right? You wouldn't be making acquisitions otherwise.
No, that's right. I mean, you pretty well nailed it on your helium intro. The one thing, or a couple of things that I think you may have missed and just maybe weren't aware of, and the market isn't either, is the issues going on in the Ukraine with Russia and the sanctions hitting Russia as a result of it further cripples the helium market, right? Russia's one of the big 3 helium providers in the world.
Wow.
And so gas isn't leaving Russia now. So we've seen that translate into even more exacerbated helium shortages, which has driven the helium price almost parabolic at this point.
Well, I know we all know what's on the natural gas prices because a lot of us have natural gas either in our homes or our pools this summer. What's it done to helium prices over the last 3 months? Ballpark.
They moved straight up. I mean, to the point where, like, if you were to retail, if you're going to buy helium, you'd be paying something like $1,000 to $2,000 per MCF retail price.
Last time we were talking, weren't you talking about $500 last time?
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we're going to get paid that. That's the going rate on the market side, and
right.
We're still modeling out in the $500 range for what we're going to receive, and this is US dollars, George, just to make sure we're clear on that. So, and the 6-month payback you talked about, that's our internal model using $250 Canadian as a price.
Yeah, so payback could be several weeks by the time.
It could be. Yeah.
Hey, great. Now, great for you guys that you position the company on your own to really benefit from this and drive value for shareholders. But now you've acquired Imperial. Look, we all know why companies acquire a company. They want to be bigger, so we know that. But what specifically led you guys to acquire Imperial? And by the way, what is it about Royal that was so compelling to the board of Imperial at the same time? Because it's a two-way street.
Yeah, absolutely it is. So we love the asset in Imperial. They're principally their Steville asset, which they've put 3 wells into so far. 2 of them look like they're going to be productive wells, and so they've been production tested. They've completed every aspect of the exploration side, and now it's a matter of just turning these wells into production wells. So we saw that feathering in with what I just talked about with market dynamics and pricing, and our ability to contract now with higher volumes at higher prices while the higher prices are here. It was too good to pass up. So we took a swing at it. We made an aggressive pitch that made sense for Royal and Royal shareholders. And I think what the Imperial board and management saw was the ability to take their asset, which they've de-risked, and marry it up with a company that has as much or more runway for economic growth than any other public company that there is.
Yeah, so I'm glad you answered that, because we want to know, look, this is still going to vote, and there may be Imperial shareholders right now wondering, hey, why should I agree to this? Why is Royal going to help make 1 + 1 4 as opposed to just 1 + 1 being 2?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it look at it now. I mean, adding the Steville asset, and there are other assets in their portfolio. Steville East is another one that looks like a bit of a mirror image of Steville, so we can put some wells there as well. But we wanted it initially to turn on those first 2 wells while we turn on our first wells at Climax, and then we go from having 3 wells producing to having 5 wells producing, and the volume essentially doubles. And when you're able to double volumes that you deliver to market in a time of rising prices, that just makes too much sense to pass up.
Yeah, because you have more people coming to you asking for helium at that point. Like I could have George's helium in 1 well. I think I'd make all this money. But
Yeah.
most people, most big customers won't come to me and say, George only got 1 well.
No,
But
I mean,
if you combine powers, then you've got a lot more demand coming in, right?
yeah, it's more reliability of supply too.
Right.
So I mean, with the 1 or 2 well company, I mean, you do stand the risk of one of the wells going down and not be able to meet your contracts. With 5, you have the ability to shift production and feed from a different field if you need to. Interesting about on the demand side, George, is historically speaking, companies like ours get approached by industrial gas companies to sign offtake agreements, and that's still the case. But we're also being contacted by end users more often than not now. So all the way down the line from small modular reactor companies to space exploration companies to you name it, they're coming direct to source now, looking to diversify their supply chain away from just purely industrial gas companies and down all the way to producer.
Are you guys agnostic to the vertical? For example, some producers say, look, we'll only deal with the middlemen, the big wholesalers and then let them deal with the end users. Or are you guys saying, hey, we're open for everybody? Which way do you think you're going to go?
Well, right now we're open for anybody. We're looking for the right mix of contracts that make sense in the short term and the long term. So I think hitching our wagon to one specific industry segment or one specific customer doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're looking to secure a couple of different offtake agreements of different term, and in each term of these things will offer different pricing. And so our viewpoint is if we can offer both a short-term contract to an offtaker married with a longer-term one, our average price per molecule delivered is going to go up. It's going to go up. So
yeah, you want to mix those, right? You want to have a little bit of a mix. You don't want them all long term. You don't want them all short term.
Yeah, we sort of look at it almost like a GIC ladder, where instead of making 1 point, you're making 200%. That's the same principle. Just try to raise the average price received.
You guys have been ready. You guys essentially been ready to get to production, and it sounds like Imperial's project also seems like it's ready, but supply chain is hampering you a little bit. Is that just a blip, or is that potentially a really big problem? I think I know what the answer is, but I think we want you to address it because they want to hear it come from you.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, when we started getting ready to move towards production, there was about a 3 to 4 month gap between when you order a purifier and when you receive it. It's now 9 to 12 months, and we're just stuck with it like everybody else. It's not unique to Royal. It'll be here for a while. Eventually it'll settle out, but for now, that's what we're looking at. So we have the engineered plans done on a facility for Climax. And when it looked like we were going to get to a point where we were going to be able to acquire Imperial, we started getting a plant engineered for that site as well. And so we have that. So once we have comfort that this deal is going to close, we will pull the trigger and order those purifiers, and we will look to acquire 2 right off the hop instead of 1, to bring 2 different fields online at the same time. And there are some cost savings associated with that. We save around 10 to 15% by ordering 2 as opposed to 1.
And I know you're not with crystal ball, but if you're saying it's 9 to 12 months and we're sitting here essentially in the almost middle of May, first week of May, does that mean you probably won't make production by the end of the year? Or is 9 to 12 months a worst case scenario? And it's kind of like plan for the worst, but you're ready for the best too.
We're calling it a worst case scenario for now. I mean, what we're guiding the markets is likely Q1, but in reality, we are targeting Q4 for production. And it's been a frustrating endeavor getting these things brought online. We've been met with a number of challenges, whether it be engineering or even just supply chain. But we're on track. I mean, we're making progress. We're close with our offtake partners. We have deals lined up on the processing side. So I think these are realistic targets to meet, that Q4, Q1
And by the way, in the meantime, it's only benefiting you and shareholders today because you've got this inventory of helium on the ground that's just gaining in value. So it's not a terrible thing.
No,
that you haven't gone to production sooner, right? I mean, I know, listen, you're the CEO and you as a company want to start producing, but as the value of your inventory grows, it's not a terrible thing not to be selling as of yet.
no, it's not. I mean, we could have signed offtake agreements last fall,
right?
And we'd have left $100 or $200 US on the table, and so I'm not suggesting that we were very smart in not signing it. We're benefiting from some terrible geopolitical events that are benefiting our commodity price. So I'm happy we didn't sign them back then. We're going to make more for our shareholders by doing it now.
You discovered the Nazar, sorry, what of the zone at the Climax project. That that was a real big thing. That's a real big feather in your cap. What's the status there of the project, and what are next steps?
Yeah, so we've had that in with the Petroleum Engineering Department at the University of Regina. They've been running modeling simulations on that zone, and what we're trying to get out of that is the exact right well design to exploit the Nazare zone to the maximum possible extent with the fewest possible wells. So we're hoping to have initial results on that mid-May, which we're almost at now. So it's moving nicely. We haven't had any roadblocks. We haven't had any negative feedback from the group of engineers that are doing it. So that sounds positive to us. And once we get those results back and we have that design, then it's just a matter of building out our development plan around that. So I think, we'll be looking to drill the well that they designed at some point, probably early third quarter, end of summer, early fall. And, presumably it'll be as successful as the model shows it. And then we'll be looking to bring on just a tidal wave of helium.
Well, okay. That leads to my next question. By the way, you don't know the questions I've gotten lined up for you, but given the fact that we probably got a lot of Imperial people who are either watching or listening to my podcast, maybe just a quick put into context, how big the discovery at Nazare is.
Well, I mean, I'm going to try not to be too arm wavy about this, but it's a massive find. It's one of the biggest inert gas finds in Saskatchewan history, if not the biggest. So finding the right way to unlock it and get it flowing to surface at high rates is just nothing but beneficial for everybody involved. If we're able to, or when we're able to do this, it's going to be another game changer for Royal, to the point where, I mean, we're going to be looking into building, permanent facilities immediately for Nazare, as opposed to the mobile ones, because the mobile ones we don't think will be able to handle the flows that come out of that zone once we have it unlocked. So
it is important to understand that it's not a case of if we can get some helium out of that. You're just trying to optimize how to get it out.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
If you want to, you could be popping it out not tomorrow, literally, but you
can. Yeah, you're right. But we want to find, because I mean, these wells are going to be a bit more unconventional when we drill them. I mean, they're going to be likely horizontal wells, and because of that, it brings in additional costs. So we want to make sure that we're drilling the most economic well possible, instead of we could have easily gone in and drilled a horizontal on our own and just tried it, but that's sort of a fool's errand if you can get some of the best engineers in the world to tell you the right way to produce the most gas for the least cost. That seems like a prudent thing to do as a business person.
Yeah, no doubt. But again, all of us are at home, have our day jobs, and we don't always know those nuances, right?
Oh, for sure.
So it's great for you to really explain to everybody. It's not a case of, can we get it out of this? You can get it out, but let's get it out efficiently. Let's
get it out the right way. So, and in the meantime, we'll be going in and drilling additional wells at Climax into the more conventional zones. So the wells we look to bring online at Climax are not going to be Nazare wells. They're going to be more conventional wells, which just means we're producing from a higher zone. So,
and last thing, going back to macro, we know demand is strong and is going to continue to remain strong. The Russia supply issue, that's not going to go away even if they magically have a ceasefire tomorrow, right? Because it seems like the world has turned on Russia, and now all sorts of sanctions from financial to gases. So do you expect that macro environment to benefit Royal and hopefully all Imperial shareholders as well for years to come? Or do you think it's more of it'll get cleaned up sooner and things get back to normal?
Well, I think to some extent it'll get back to normal. It's going to take some time, though. I mean, I don't see a very fast ending to this situation over there. And as you said, even when we do, it's not as if ceasefire today, free flow of everything out of Russia tomorrow. And so I think there's going to be some benefit to Royal and Imperial shareholders over the next couple of years, which is great because remember, we contract out not on daily spot prices, but on futures prices. So to the extent that the price has moved up to 400 to 500 US, we're going to be contracting for that for a couple of years. So even if the price drops, I mean, we're still benefiting from it. But in the long run, that gas will come back to market. Whether it just serves China at that point or if the rest of the world is willing to start accepting again remains to be seen. But practically speaking, unless we have really bringing a lot of new helium molecules to market, or some of our competitors do, the world needs it. They're going to take it from wherever they can get it.
This acquisition, look, this is a friendly deal.
Yeah.
The board, who speaks for shareholders, Imperial, they liked it. They're recommending it. So do you expect any real issues other than just the standard closing? And if not, what's the ball? What does it look like before closing and after closing?
Sure. No, we don't expect any material road bumps. I mean, we've talked to a number of the larger Imperial shareholders and the brokerage firms that own material quantities in their books, and they understand it. They understand the ability to take a good asset and marry it with a really good asset that's much, much bigger. So they see the upside. They're in favor. I have not had a negative review on the deal yet from any one of the shareholders we've talked to. So it's just going to follow the normal path. It's going to go through all of the timelines regards to writing investment circulars for the Imperial shareholders and having a formal shareholder vote. We're targeting the end of June for that. I mean, it is possible it trickles into early July, but we're hopeful that it won't. But even if it does, it does. I mean, at that point, we're going to know going in a few weeks out whether or not this is looking like it's going to pass with no issue. And if it does, we'll start ordering those facilities and just start cutting down that timeline so we can get these things rolling as soon as
away you go.
Yeah. And I would look for some things in the interim between now and then coming out of Royal, involving who we're going to be selling the gas to out of these wells. And I think those are very impactful news releases.
So you're pretty confident that you guys are close to signing some takes.
Yeah. I mean, we're in contract writing stage for a couple of these things. So
that's great to hear, Andy.
It's really going to happen. We've talked about it for a long time, and as I mentioned, we could have done this last fall, but I'm glad we didn't. So I think when we come out with these contracts, the market will actually be able to look at it and say, okay, they're selling helium for X. They're going to produce at X rate. We can now model cash flows and see, okay, what is a helium company actually worth? It's not just spec value anymore. We'll have real metrics. And I think that's really going to benefit us, and it'll cause a re-rate on probably the whole helium space, positively or negatively, but we're going to be able to see with some predictability what cash flows should look like on one of these companies.
Well, I'm going to read this. 8 Capital made you the top pick of 2022. Yep. And an excerpt says, we see helium as a key play for 2022. It should be a catalyst-rich year for Royal Helium, including plans for first production, which we see as a catalyst for a major re-rating event.
Yeah.
So it looks like everyone's really positive about what you're doing there. It's just no longer a question of, and this is a big one, when you guys were first starting to accumulate and acquire helium assets years ago, most people thought, what the heck are you talking about?
Oh, I know.
Yep. You're chasing cannabis and blockchain and things like that. And here you are today, top pick from 8 Capital, making a pretty important acquisition and not too far off from production. So on that note, last word to you, Andy, how should your shareholders feel about how Royal Helium is positioned right now?
Well, I think they should be pretty excited. And I think the Imperial shareholders should be very excited about what this deal offers. And I think what we've done over the last number of years is exactly what we're supposed to do, which is change the question from if to when. And that's, we've done that pretty successfully. There's no if we'll ever produce. Now it's just when. When can we get the facilities on site and start turning these things on? And so we'll give more guidance as we go on the when. But things look really good here. I mean, we're capitalized to get through our exploration program this summer. We've got a well that we're going to start drilling here in a matter of weeks. So we're still rolling. Besides everything that's happening with Imperial, we'll be drilling back in Saskatchewan within a couple of weeks.
Well, I'm going to ask you one last
Sure.
very fast question that to really, for the world to really get a measure of if Andrew Davidson knows what he's talking about. I see a hockey stick hanging behind you on the wall. Playoffs have already started. You've got to see some cards on the table from different teams.
Yep.
Who's winning the cup?
Oh boy, oh boy. I think betting against Colorado would be a fool's errand at this point.
Yeah. Despite the fact that Calgary's right next door to you.
Despite the fact that Calgary's right next door, and I'm pulling for Calgary. They have an exciting team, but boy, what a series that would be. Two high-powered offensive teams going at it. So
I'm assuming you don't have high hopes for the Maple Leafs.
I'd love to see them move on. They have a history of not closing the deal, so to speak. And I think last night was an example of that.
Yeah.
I hope they get over it soon, because I think the league would be better off having Toronto make a deep run.
But I got to tell you, the fact that you answered that question with Colorado means you put your head in front of your heart. So that's a big check mark for me. And Andy, congratulations on this. It's not closed yet, but on this really important development. Yeah. And it looks like we're going to have you back on, because from what you're saying, we should be expecting more news in the next several weeks. So can't wait to have you back on.
That's great. Well, thanks for the time. I always appreciate our conversations.
Hey, the fact that you're able to describe to everybody the helium industry in a way that we all get it, and the macros and the short term, I think is awesome. It's always great talking to you.
Awesome. Thanks, George.
For everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening to my podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To Andrew Davidson, the CEO and chairman of Royal Helium, trades in Canada under the stock symbol RHC. For friends in the US, RHCCF. To do your due diligence, get the company's profile page in Agoracom, where you get a great 1,000-foot overview of the company and its projects. And once you've got that base foundational knowledge, head right over to the company's website, do your deep dive due diligence, and hopefully today you discovered your next great small cap company. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, the video's over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our YouTube channel so you never miss another great Agoracom small cap video.